Well?
Some two-bit outfit almost got them, but they bopped their way past.
We can meet them at the 96th Street station.
Yeah, platform's probably crawling with cops.
Cops are trying to rack up every gang in this town.
Yeah, you and me included.
How come you're so happy about this?
I'm having a good time. So,
Yes,
we are on Coney Island.
we are on Coney Island.
We are in a sandwich shop.
We're in a sandwich shop having a little dinner.
And then from here we are heading to the Coney Island Film Festival, which is screening The Warriors.
Yes, and I'm just going to follow you because I've never been out here. I have no idea what this movie is that we're going to see. I have no idea where we are. I have placed my life in your hands, husband.
So many possibilities.
The mind reels.
It really does. But, so you know nothing about this movie going in?
I know that it exists. I know people are super into it. And I know that the phrase come out to play, yay, has something to do with it. That's all I got.
Okay. Well, I, on the other hand, am a total nerd for this movie. It came out in 1979, which is 40 years ago. And, it's definitely a culty movie. And it's one that I look forward to hearing your take on. I'm not sure how much I'm expecting you to enjoy this, but I'm glad you're coming with me.
I'm willing to try anything once for the most part, so let's see how it goes.
Excellent. So we'll shove this food in our faces and then head in to see the Warriors.
Sounds good to me.
Hey, Gila.
Hey, Rob.
Are we back?
We are back.
In fact, we're farther back than usual.
It's true.
Because we saw the Warriors a day and a half ago?
2 days ago. 2 days ago.
We went to see it on Saturday night, and then we actually recorded this episode on the train coming home in my ginchy little handheld recorder.
And while we had a lot to say, it didn't sound good enough for us to foist it upon you.
No, it was just very bad, and in order to filter the background noise of the train and the people on the train and just the train stations and all that lovely noise, it just sounded like a wet bag of ass. And so
Had it sounded like a dry bag of ass, would we be okay releasing it? I mean,
it's a case-by-case basis, but I mean, one must take into account the measurements of the particular bag and ass.
Yes, and the relative wetness of said... Is it the wetness of the bag or the wetness of the ass?
Well, there's a difference between a wet bag of ass and a bag of wet ass.
That's true.
It would take an audio engineer to explain it, really, but...
Luckily, we have one here.
Oh, right. Let's get into that after the episode, because this actually brings us into distinguished company, because so many of the best podcasts end up having, like, a lost episode somewhere. So this is ours.
Episode 6.
Mm-hmm. So we are now re-recording the episode, and... Maybe the discussions will go in different directions. I mean, you've had some time for this movie to cook in your head. Well, let's get it out of the way. You had feelings about this coming out of the movie.
I definitely had feelings coming out of the movie. Basically, my question to you was, what the fuck did you make me watch? Seriously, dude, what the fuck did you make me watch?
Well, it's a movie called The Warriors. It was directed in 1979 by Walter Hill and based on the 1969 novel by Sal Urich.
Right, yeah, no, I know that. But, like, what was it? I kept saying to you that I felt a bit cheated because all the people in the matching costumes and the face paint and everything who were walking in little groups I was waiting for the singing and dancing to start. It didn't.
No, this was not, in fact, a musical.
Yeah, it might have made a little bit more sense if it had been a musical.
Well, I can't argue with that. If it's musicals you want, the next thing in Michael Beck's career was Xanadu, which is its own level of special. We may talk about that in another episode someday. So, you had not seen this movie. You didn't know anything about it going in.
I knew that... no, I knew nothing. I knew it was about gangs.
Mm-hmm. And so when we went to see it, it was the Coney Island Film Festival, which happened all this past weekend. And this is a showing that they do, I think, annually, where they show The Warriors, because The Warriors is an iconic Coney Island movie.
Right. And that was one of my issues from the jump, because it's an iconic Coney Island movie, but like 90% of it takes place not on Coney Island.
Not on Coney Island, but trying to get to Coney Island. Coney Island is the goal. It's the brass ring of this movie.
Yeah, but Dorothy spends the entire film, The Wizard of Oz, trying to get back to Kansas. No one thinks The Wizard of Oz is a Kansas movie.
I don't know. I think if you went to Kansas, you'd find people who like claim The Wizard of Oz as like their own thing. It's like there was a big competition when the Simpsons movie came out, and since there's a Springfield in like every state, and the Simpsons had taken great pains to not show which Springfield they were, there was a thing where different states could compete to have their Springfield be the Simpsons'. Mm-hmm. I forget who won because I don't care, but but it was a thing. Like, people like to take ownership of these things. I think there's a marker somewhere in Iowa where you can see where Captain Kirk was born in the future, even though he's played by an actor from Canada.
Did you know that you can go to in Iowa, you can go to the field where the plane crash happened on the day the music died?
And what? Hope to find something on the ground, or?
I don't know. But you can go to the field where the music died.
You know, if that's your idea of a good time, you go right ahead. But I'm going to stay here and work on stuff.
There's a rock and roll themed Dairy Queen right by the field. No.
No. But when your Dairy Queen ice cream starts melting, is that like the most tragic thing that has ever happened in that field in Iowa?
You have no idea. If the ice cream falls off your cone, that field has never seen anything worse. Okay, I've got skeletons to pick with this movie.
Skeletons. Okay. But I wanted to talk, before we get into it, I wanted to talk a little bit more about the screening, because, like I said, it's the Coney Island Film Festival, and it was in this theater, the Sideshow Theater on Coney Island, among all the amusements and stuff that Coney Island is known for. And it is a delightfully gritty little place.
Yeah.
They have actual sideshows in there. That's their main thing. And they also show films in this theater, which is a big screen. Well, not a big screen, but, a movie-sized screen on the small side of movie-sized screens. Mm-hmm. And in front of it are bleachers.
Bleachers. We're too old for bleachers. I'm sorry to say. We're too old for bleachers.
Although I think there might have been someone smoking behind them, which... completed the...
Well, you mean as opposed
ambiance.
To the entire family who were vaping in front of us in line?
That's true. But so, yeah, it was a suitably gritty place in which to see this famously gritty movie.
Yes.
Filmed in famously gritty 1970s New York City.
All of this is true.
So you had skeletons to pick.
I had skeletons to pick. Okay. My parents lived in New York in the late 70s, and I heard it was dark and it was scary and it was crime-ridden. If I had known that all of the street gangs all wore like matching outfits and some of them wore face paint, I don't know if that was scary. Like if I had gotten jumped by a gang of 9 mimes, okay.
So you're saying that wouldn't be the freakiest thing that happened to you in New York City?
I'm saying that would be far from the freakiest thing that happened to me in New York City.
Because I'd be well freaked out.
It's set It was filmed in 1978 and released in 1979, and it's set in a not distant dystopian future.
Right. It was kind of a 20 minutes into the future type of thing at the time. So a bit retro-futuristic, though they didn't really dress the area. They just filmed in modern-day New York. What was then modern-day New York.
Well, yes. They shot in contemporary New York.
Well, let me talk a little bit about my...
Oh, right. Yes, I'm sorry. You have connections.
Oh, yeah, I got some connections. Some New York connections. I'll tell you all about them. Hey, baba-da-boo. You got a mozzarella my tarantella over here. Hey, yeah?
Hey, yeah.
So, The Warriors, it's a cult movie. I can safely count myself among its cult. It's one of those movies that I don't know when I first saw it. It was on TV or something at some point, and I caught it and wondered, what the hell is this thing I'm looking at? Because it looks like nothing else. And just got into it. Over the years, I've owned it on VHS, on DVD, twice on DVD, because they came out with a director's cut, which actually wasn't very good, on Blu-ray, everything. It's a movie that I enjoy, and it's a movie that I know is flawed in many ways, but it's a fun kind of turn-off-your-brain movie for me. You had no such background with it.
None whatsoever.
The cast of The Warriors. We have the Wikipedia article up here for the movie, and going down to the cast section, Michael Beck as Swan, the warlord and former Maine lieutenant.
Actually, here's something I'm just going to jump in and say, is that I'm convinced that part of the reason a cult grew up around this movie is because you need to see it more than once to, like, catch everybody's name and catch the name of all the gangs. I am going to get to the Max Wright quote at some point. Not right now, but I'm going to get there.
Okay, well, you can keep that on deck there. Yeah, Michael Beck as Swan, the warlord and the former Maine lieutenant. Warlord is a rank in the Warriors gang, and this Wikipedia article, because it's written by cult film fans who are insane. I love you guys. I know you're out there. You're insane. They did a thing that some fans of this movie do, which is they call the leaders of every gang warlord, which I don't think is canon. I think that was just the Warriors gang, because they've all got sort of their themes going on.
They've got their themes going on. I'm sorry. Could you imagine, like, the Kiss Yankees having a warlord? No, the Kiss Yankees had a general manager.
Yeah, actually, they're the baseball Furies.
Yeah, they're the Kiss Yankees.
That's true. Okay,
because they wear pinstripes and face paint. They are the Kiss Yankees.
They are the Kiss Yankees. I can't really argue with that. But yeah, they totally would have had like the general manager or the coach or something.
Right, like the base coach or their radio man would have been the public address system. I mean, just like lean into your metaphor.
The ones with like the heavy themes would have had some sort of leadership role named after whatever it is in their theme.
I would really like to know what all the leadership roles in the mime gang were called. Caught in a box.
I think.
Caught in a box.
They're probably
blowing
named,
a bubble.
I think he was probably named Marcel.
Touche.
But actually, I think the video game went into that, but that's not canon, so we won't go into it here. Deborah Van Valkenburg as Mercy, a former prostitute for the orphans, it says here, who eventually joins the Warriors. Now, again, Wikipedia is nuts. I don't think anything in the film hinted that she was a prostitute.
She expressly said she wasn't.
No, she said, I ain't no whore. But maybe they took the double negative literally. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, Deborah Van Valkenburg, also known to viewers of 80s television as one of the daughters of Ted Knight in Too Close for Comfort, the famous sitcom that starred Jim J. Bullock and a puppet cow. And, Deborah Van Valkenburg as one of the wisecracking daughters.
I'm having a moment of cognitive dissonance here. I can't even imagine that. But I guess it's sort of like if you saw, I don't know, Judd Nelson in St. Elmo's Fire before you saw Judd Nelson in The Breakfast Club, and it's just, you can't go from one to the other.
I think it's more Judd Nelson in The Breakfast Club and Judd Nelson in Suddenly Susan.
Oh, Ali Sheedy in The Breakfast Club and Ali Sheedy in Short Circuit?
Maybe, yeah. Okay. So, Deborah Van, James Remar as Ajax, a heavy muscle.
So I said to you, I think young James Remar looks a whole lot like Chris Pine.
He does, and I'd never noticed that before you said so. But yeah, he's got the big blue eyes and like the square jaw and everything, and the whole tough guy thing. And yeah, he does have a Chris Pine thing going on. Brian Tyler as Snow, the radio man who becomes the main lieutenant. Again, none of that's in the movie. But yes, Brian Tyler as Snow. He doesn't even get wiki-linked his name because he's done nothing else, I guess.
Yeah, do you know how much the cast of this movie quit acting not long after?
Yeah.
I would not take that as a badge of honor, Walter Hill.
David Harris as Cochise, a Native American-themed soldier.
Okay.
He was the one with the feathered earrings and
the headband and the big turquoise necklace.
Right. The whole Warriors gang, like their whole aesthetic is sort of cowboys and Indians, Old West type of stuff. But some lean more heavily on the Indian part, including the African American who goes by Cochise. That's, yeah. 1979 era racial sensitivity. Tom McKittrick as Cowboy, a soldier. Yeah.
He got to wear a shirt.
He got to wear a shirt. He also got to wear a hat.
A shirt and a hat.
Hence Cowboy.
Ah, yes.
And again, his name isn't wiki-linked either. He appeared nowhere else, it looks like. Marcelino Sanchez as Rembrandt, the graffiti artist.
Yes.
Yes. If you were a child of the 80s who watched the Bloodhound Gang segments on 321 Contact, the famous PBS educational show.
We're the Bloodhound Gang.
Yep, the Bloodhound Gang was a separate little sub-segment that they usually ended the show with, which is about three kids who went off and solved mysteries together.
The Bloodhound Gang was to 321 Contact as MathNet was to Square One TV.
Absolutely. And Marcelino played a character called, I think, Ricardo in the Bloodhound Gang, which was, I think, like 5 years after this. Unfortunately, he did not survive the 1980s. He ended up passing away very young of AIDS-related illness. Which is terribly sad. He was one of those actors who can play very young. Like, he was an adult in this movie. He looks like a baby. Mm-hmm. You pointed out, like, the camera zooms in on him at one point, and you could see his acne.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really sweet. And it was... We'll get there.
We will get there. Terry Mikos as Vermin, the gang's bearer and co-founder. Again, not in the movie. But yeah, Vermin was the one... with the hairy chest, the white guy who was alternately frightened and funny.
I mean, I just thought he was dumb.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, made him funny.
He was the dumb guy, but he was also like the wisecracking guy.
And the fact that he played the dumb guy makes it all funnier that he quit acting. And you know what he did?
What did he do?
He became an anchor on MSNBC.
Thomas G. Waits as Fox, the scout.
Yes.
Uncredited.
And please share with us the story of how he became uncredited.
Well, the story of how he became uncredited was originally he was written as one of the main characters who was going to end up with Mercy, Deborah Van Valkenburg's character, at the end. But apparently, as a young actor, he was basically difficult to work with and ended up really butting heads with Walter Hill over... various stuff. Apparently, he did get. They had one trailer for all the Warriors at one point, which was very cramped, and he threatened to go to SAG, I think. And finally, they split him up into two different trailers. But he was basically complaining about stuff during the shoot to the point where Walter Hill said to the stunt crew while they were filming a fight scene that we'll talk about later. He just said, "I don't care how you do it, just figure out a way to kill this character because I don't want him in the movie anymore." So they did the Spaceballs thing. They got his stunt double to just struggle with a cop and get killed later on, and he was written out of the film. And Swan ended up being the one who had the thing going with Mercy. And apparently, since then, Thomas G. Waits, not to be confused with Tom Waits.
Although apparently they are friends.
But he eventually got to apologize to Walter Hill years later and for being such a little shit. That's why he remains uncredited to this day, though they did bring him back to revoice his character in the video game, and he got a credit then.
I think he was also at some of the anniversary stuff they've done.
Yeah, he's been, like, basically all these guys, and Deborah, have been really into, like, the whole convention thing and going to, like, comic shows and things like that on you know, anniversaries and whatnot. There was a big screening in 2006 that Netflix had hosted. They had a thing called the Rolling Roadshow, and the whole point of that was to take movies on the road to the places that either places that they made famous or places that were iconic to the movie. So they showed the Warriors out in a park in Coney Island that was over the road from Astroland and the amusement park. So they got a big inflatable screen out, and this was hosted by, of all people, Lisa Loeb, who wasn't busy with anything else in 2006, I guess.
Yes, but she said, stay.
Oh, you did that.
I did. And I'm not sorry.
No, but Lisa Loeb, who didn't really appear to know why she was there or care, hosted this thing, and yeah, they again brought up, like, basically all the living cast at that point, and did, like, an audience Q&A thing after, and they had, like, scavenger hunts and games and stuff in the day leading up to the screening. So that was a big event and stuff like that. Like, I saw that screening in 2006, and it was fun. But yeah, basically all these actors, I think also because none of them really went on to superstardom after this. The ones that have been around have been into, like, doing the whole celebrating the movie with their cult thing. Mm-hmm. All right, so where are we? Thomas G. Waits. Dorsey Wright as Cleon, the gang's warlord and co-founder.
No, he's the one with the leopard print keffiyeh, right?
Yes. Yes. He's also, he's the imposing badass gang leader who lasts for all of 10 minutes.
Yeah. Leopard print keffiyeh.
Leopard print keffiyeh. Yeah, there is no other way to describe that thing that he's got on his head.
Yeah.
Roger Hill as Cyrus, the warlord of the Gramercy Rifts. Again, this wiki thing calls the other gang leaders warlord,
Which
and
is
I disagree.
probably not correct.
So Roger Hill as Cyrus, the leader of the Gramercy Rifts.
There you go.
Yeah.
Gang Jesus.
Gang Jesus.
Gang Jesus.
He was totally Gang Jesus.
He was. Can you dig it?
I can dig it, yes. Roger Hill apparently went on to become a librarian. He was at that screening in 2006, but he passed away sometime recently, I think. David Patrick Kelly as Luther, the warlord of the Rogues. No, he was the leader of the Rogues.
He was the leader of the Rogues.
He was the main rogue.
And he was bleached Spicoli.
Bleached Spicoli. Yeah, explain why he's bleached Spicoli.
Well, he kind of looks like, Sean Penn went through the wash a couple times on the hot cycle and all the color bleached out of him. He looks like bleached Spicoli. I'm sorry. There's just... I don't quite know how else to put it.
Yeah.
He has stayed an actor.
He has. And the thing is, like, he's in the movie, he's this little guy, like this very short guy, skinny little, jangly guy. And he's got this amazingly squeaky voice. And he shouts in this squeaky voice. And it just sounds like no one else's voice. Like, all the movies he's done since, like, he's an adult, he's old, he's whatever, but he's still got that same squeaky voice.
There was an episode of Blue Bloods that he did where he played a murderer who was doing some sort of, like, what do they call it when the criminal and the victim have, like, a conversation? Some program of that nature. And he was the murderer. And he was meeting with this woman whose family he had murdered, basically. And, yeah, like, he was speaking quietly and almost pleadingly, but, like, it took me a while to recognize that voice when we saw the movie.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. He was also the antagonist in a movie called Dreamscape that I really like.
I'm sure you're surprised I have not seen it, nor heard of it till this very moment.
No, it's about basically people go to sleep hooked up to a machine, and they can psychically enter each other's dreams. And this was in the 80s, like long before Inception.
I was going to say, didn't Christopher Nolan make that movie in 2010? Yes,
but this was 30 years earlier. But it was an 80s movie, and it was pretty great. Lynn Thigpen as DJ, an unnamed DJ who reports on the gang activities. Now, Lynn Thigpen.
Lynn Thigpen.
Talk about Lynn Thigpen.
Oh, man, Lynn Thigpen. So, unfortunately, she left us far too early.
Yes.
Lynn Thigpen, known to many, many, many people of our generation as the Chief on the TV show Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, as in Gumshoes, I Salute You.
Mm-hmm. This being the live-action game show version, not the cartoon or any of the other Carmen Sandiego guff that's happened.
No, the PBS TV show, we don't speak about any of the other ones.
Right.
Greg Lee, Lynn Thigpen, Rockapella. There you go. That's all you need.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, she was so wonderful.
She was dynamite.
Part of what annoyed me about her participation in this movie is that she was only filmed in very tight close-up, and all you saw was her nose and her mouth.
Yeah, but really that's all she needed to get her point across in this. Like, she's the DJ, and her job was basically, like, to be the Greek chorus of this movie.
That's a really good way to describe it.
And also explain how orders from the Riffs, who were the most powerful gang in the city, got their orders out to all the other gangs, because all the other gangs were listening to the radio. And apparently this one station is somehow controlled by the Riffs, where they just give her thinly veiled messages to order the other gangs around.
They were not that thinly veiled.
Right. But
they were just messages.
So the radio is basically the gang internet, or BBS at least. You saw Lynn Thigpen in close-up. It was just her mouth and her nose and this microphone in this shady radio studio. She would just deliver lines and then have her, like, patented Lynn Thigpen smirk. And really, she was hot in this movie.
Yeah. I don't think there's any argument with that. Like, just the shade of lipstick. Oh.
Mm-hmm. Just everything was nicely done. I really like the device of the DJ in this movie. You might also know Lynn Thigpen from the movie version of Godspell. She was one of the hippies running around Jesus, who in that movie had a Superman shirt on and a massive afro.
You may also know Lynn Thigpen from the movie Lean on Me, where she was not nice.
No, she was an antagonist in Lean on Me, but she was still Lynn Thigpen, and therefore I was kind of on her side. And since that stuff came out about Morgan Freeman, I'm even more on her side in that movie.
We don't want a good principal. We want Mr. Clark.
All right, Edward Sewer as Masai, the warlord of the Gramercy. No, the boss of the Gramercy Riffs.
Was he the one with the mirrored sunglasses?
He was the one with the mirrored sunglasses.
Okay.
The boss of the Gramercy Riffs, succeeding Cyrus. An error in the cast listed Dennis Gregory as Masai. He was the one with the mirror shades that you often saw the camera crew reflected in.
Bless.
Mm-hmm. And he's the one throwing around orders and getting messages and all that sort of good stuff. Joel Weiss as Cropsey, the main lieutenant of the Rogues. He's the guy that Luther, like, smacks around before the Rogues go off to do something.
Before the Rogues go rogue?
Mm-hmm. Oh, Rogue's gonna rogue. And the Rogues, too, like, their uniform was black, like, motorcycle captain hats and black leather vests and stuff. They were all basically the leather dude from the Village People.
Yeah. I mean, every gang was basically a village person.
A lot of them were. Kate Klugman as Star, the leader of the Lizzies. I wonder if she's related to Jack Klugman.
Anything is possible. Does she have a wiki link?
She does not. Paul Greco as Sully, the leader of the Orphans. He's the one who looks like David Schwimmer on meth.
I'm sorry about the peeking. Probably just went off the charts there, but that was really funny.
Thank you. He was supposed to be this really grimy, scrubby dude, and he owns the role.
Yeah.
As lazy-eyed, losing his shit, David Schwimmer. Apache Ramos as Jesse, the main lieutenant of the Orphans.
Looks like Aaron Neville.
He was the one who looks like Aaron Neville with a big afro.
What was his responsibility as the main lieutenant of the Orphans?
His responsibility as the main lieutenant of the Orphans was to carry around the news article that the Orphans showed people to prove how badass they are.
And thinking about it now, that was a visual thing about the Orphans, but we'll come back to it.
Mm-hmm. Comrade Sheehan as Vance, the leader of the Punks.
Roller skates.
Yeah, he was the one with the roller skates. The Punks are the gang that look nothing like punks. They're just wearing overalls, and, like, some of them have stripy shirts, and they all have that feathered Leif Garrett hair.
Overalls and Farrah Fawcett haircuts.
Yes. Rob Ryder as Ed, the main lieutenant of the Punks. Mercedes Ruehl as Chloe, an undercover police officer in Riverside Park who arrests Ajax.
Yeah, she was my favorite character in the whole piece.
Who doesn't love a bit of Mercedes Ruehl?
I can think of no one who doesn't love a bit of Mercedes Ruehl.
Yeah. Also known as the lady. She was in the movie Big. She was in a bunch of stuff. She might be the best known one out of this bunch.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say Mercedes Ruehl, James Remar, and Lynn Thigpen.
Mm-hmm. Even James Remar, I think, in like fans of certain movies and stuff know who he is, but I think he's in general circulation just one of those that guy actors.
Yeah.
But people know who Mercedes Ruehl is.
That's very true.
All right. Shall we crack onto the plot here?
What plot there is to speak of, let's do.
Okay. Plot section from Wikipedia. Cyrus, leader of the Gramercy Riffs, the most powerful gang in New York City, calls a midnight summit of all the city's gangs, requesting them to send 9 unarmed delegates to Van Cortlandt Park.
Right. So Gang Jesus asks everybody to, like, come to the park. Mm-hmm. So this was, I enjoyed the opening jump cuts of all of the gangs in their matching outfits coming to their subway stations and traveling to the summit because Gang Jesus had them come to the summit. And like, oh my God. And it was like jump cut with the warriors talking smack about what was going to happen and the gangs. And I told you, one of my favorite things about this movie was watching one person from each gang go up to the token booth and then either hand out the tokens or stand there and just keep putting tokens in as people were going through the turnstiles. Yes. Like, these are bad people.
Yes, these are all the gangs of New York, to coin a phrase. They're all bad kids. They're all badasses. They're out there beating up and killing people and stealing and whatever. But no, watching them all get their tokens and then go, and here's one for you, and here's one for you, and here's one for you.
We're just going through the turnstiles.
Yes.
And they're all wearing their little matching outfits.
Yes,
and
they're
sometimes
all
they have
matchy.
patches sewn on. Mm-hmm. And let's see, I like the Boppers, who were the gang that looked like I'm sorry to say, I can't think of any other way to put it. They look like classic 70s blaxploitation pimps.
Yeah, they were in shiny purple vests and purple hats and basically bopping clothes. Mm-hmm. Which is funny because bopper is also, in the context of this movie, just means all you gang people who are fighting.
Right, like that's what the DJ addressed everybody as. Mm-hmm. Hey, you boppers.
Yes.
Right, so you see the mimes and the boppers and everybody was wearing their little outfits and their little face paint, and they had their outfits and they're putting their tokens in the turnstiles and the thing about the casting of this movie was that they all, with the exception of Rembrandt, all the warriors read really old.
Right, and they're supposed to basically be kids. They were definitely school kids in the original novel, and in this they're implied to be kids. Like they have a youth board worker and things like that. But yeah, it's sort of the Beverly Hills 90210 level of high school kid who is obviously in at least his 20s.
Yeah, so a lot of the stuff that they were saying would have sounded different coming out of the mouth of a younger person, but, you know, they all looked like they were pushing 30. So it totally changed the tone of a lot of it, I think.
I think you're right. Yeah, I mentioned the original novel, which was by Sol Uric, who was someone who had, like, worked with actual New York City gang kids and apparently like deeply embedded himself in the whole culture that was going on. And the book was like 10 years before the movie. So when Uric wrote his book, it was basically played really straight. Like there was none of this camp level to it. It was not like a dystopian future thing. It was meant to be more realistic as these things go.
But was any of the camp level of the movie intentional?
I think it must have been, at least partway, because you don't paint the faces of a bunch of guys in baseball suits and not believe that on some level you're doing campy things. Camp was a well-identified thing at the time. You know, it was the late 70s. This was the disco era still. People knew what they were doing when they made things look ridiculous, but with big, you know, hunky bear chests. And
yeah, there was God, this movie.
And so many perms and
so many perms,
afros
so little time.
Yeah. That's one of the things I really love about this movie is just it looks like nothing else that has ever been committed to celluloid. Yeah. So, getting back to the plot.
Such as it is.
Yeah. The warriors from Coney Island attend the summit. The idea is that each gang would be sending their 9 best people with no weapons, just because there's a general truce throughout the city. No one's allowed to fight with each other because the Riffs are the most powerful gang in the city. So if you break their truce, they'll kick your ass. So you do what they say, including meeting in this park. And another thing about this park scene, which was supposed to be in Van Cortlandt Park, but it was filmed in Riverside Park, which is in Manhattan, not the Bronx.
Yeah, well.
But in this crowd scene, everyone's mixed together, which you would expect to, like, if they were going for realism, like, each gang would sort of be keeping to their own and, the crowd would be sort of patchwork. But no, everyone was standing next to everyone because it looked visually fantastic.
That's true. Just everybody's all mixed up together and gang member next to gang member. And one of the things that we talked about that really struck me was that with the exception of the Riffs, it was like the United Gangsters of Benetton. Just every gang was ethnically mixed. It was very multi-culty.
Yeah, that's another thing that puts this firmly in the fantasy side of things, because at the time, and I think mainly now too, the actual gangs that existed and exist these days are basically, a lot of them are rooted in ethnic groups. So you wouldn't have every gang looking basically like the bridge crew of a Star Trek starship, with everyone all nice and multicultural, and you got one of each, and everyone gets along well.
Yeah, I mean, 2 words for that section. Black skinheads.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a sight.
Yeah.
I mean, even the skinheads need their black friends.
I guess, but it was... This movie.
Cyrus proposes to the assembled crowd a permanent citywide truce and alliance that would allow the gangs to control the city, since they outnumber the police by 3-1. And it's funny watching the whole speech that he does. Like, there are a lot of people who see this movie, and I used to hang around on like the IMDb forum for this movie back when there was such a thing, and stuff like that. And there's a whole fan site at warriorsmovie.co.uk. There is a very firm cult about this, and some people take it like so seriously. And that's going to happen with any cult film, but like every so often someone pops up and they're like, yeah, they could really do that. And like, yeah. I mean, he goes through the whole math of it, like, we have this many gang members and this many other ones not organized but ready to fight, and there are only 20,000 cops in the whole town, and
there's 60,000 of us and only 20,000 of them,
Yeah.
and if we can stop fighting between ourselves, we could run this city.
Yeah. Well, again, maybe it's a future dystopia thing that they wouldn't just bring in the National Guard to quell all these kids in colorful outfits.
Why didn't the singing and dancing ever start? The opening sequence where everybody's like, the warriors are all talking to each other, and the people are on the trains, and all the gangs are going into the station, it sounds like that section of West Side Story where they're all like talking about their plans for that night.
Yeah, West Side Story with all the Puerto Ricans dancing to Mexican music played by Italians.
Anita's gonna get her kicks tonight.
Oof. Anyway, that wasn't an oof directed at you, just West Side Story.
I know. Also, I
have
think
problems with that movie.
the fact that the gang is called the Riffs, it's an homage.
Was there a gang in West Side Story called the Riffs?
No, one of the characters was named Riff.
Oh.
The
Okay.
leader of the Sharks.
Okay.
The Jets. The Sharks. The Sharks.
Well, if he was a jet all the way. I know that much.
From his first cigarette to his last dying day. I could keep going, but I'm not going to.
So the Warriors.
Yes.
Most of the gangs applaud his idea, but hidden in the crowd, Luther, leader of the Rogues, shoots Cyrus dead.
After the single worst game of hot potato ever in the history of games of hot potato. Right, because nobody's supposed to be armed, and like the Rogues have smuggled in this one gun, so they're passing it from hand to 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 hand.
Yeah, there's a nice camera tracking shot of the gun just passing from hand to hand to hand, and it's a close-up of the hands until it gets to Luther.
Hot potato, hot potato, hot potato, hot potato.
Which, if we were to take this seriously, why wouldn't Luther have just brought his own damn gun instead of like had his friend 9 seats down have it?
Because Luther was the guy in charge, and if anybody was going to get frisked, it was going to be the guy in charge.
Ah. So you don't like this movie, but you're solving problems in it.
That's why I'm solving problems in it.
You're retconning it. Nice. Okay,
I'm not retconning it half as much as the bozos who edited Wikipedia.
This is true.
The warlord of the Lizzies.
Luther shoots Cyrus, and this is our introduction to Luther. Close up of his smirking face as he shoots Cyrus. Cyrus takes a
Jesus-like fall.
Yeah, a Jesus-like fall. He's got his arms stretched out. Yeah, he is Gang Jesus.
He's Gang Jesus
with his long hair and his bathrobe,
and his chiseled cheekbones.
Yes. Fox he's basically the scout for the warriors, and that is in the movie. And he sees Luther do it, and Luther sees that Fox sees him and goes to shoot Fox too, and then the lights go on because the cops have been slowly pulling up their cars and surrounding the park, and then they turn on these big lights around the park and start arresting people, and there's chaos and everyone's running everywhere.
Gang members running amok.
Which is fun because if you look closely, you can see that they're just basically running around in circles, so as to keep the crowd numbers up for the camera shots. And they're running around in counter-rotating circles. It's like that dance that happens at the Jewish weddings
with the chairs.
With the one where you're all going around in circles.
Yeah, and then eventually you put the people up on chairs.
Oh, okay. The chairs come after that.
It's all part of the same thing.
That traditional dance y'all do with the chairs.
Oh yes, that's the one. Yes.
What's that called?
The hora.
The hora. Okay. Yes, there are circles within circles, and they're all turning in different ways to each other, and it's great. And so this chaos is going on, and Fox does not get shot by Luther, but yes, here in the plot.
But then Luther yells out, "The warriors did it," and then the whole crowd takes down, what's his bucket?
Cleon. Yes, in the resulting
Leopard Print Kafia.
In the resulting chaos, Luther frames the warriors' leader Cleon for the murder, and Cleon is beaten down and most likely killed by the Riffs. Meanwhile, the other warriors find each other and escape by beating a hole in the fence, going through it and ending up in a graveyard.
You do.
So that's Cleon is the first fatality, or at least casualty, of this warriors trip, and him being the leader.
Casualty of warriors.
Yes, casualty of warriors. Nice one.
Thank you. I was pretty proud of that.
And when he's killed, the Riffs are basically, their theme is martial arts, and they're all in what might be kimonos or some sort of gi or bathrobes, silky bathrobes.
Yeah, I think the squad leaders were wearing silky bathrobes, and just the foot soldiers were wearing sort of a Hare Krishna style burnt umber thing.
Saffron robes.
Saffron robes.
And they all start 70s grindhouse movie martial arts moves on Cleon, and he ends up in the middle of this, or at the bottom of this big dog pile where people are just dropping elbows on him because that's the only move left to do when the guy's already down there. Right.
And again, this is one of the issues I had with the movie. Mm-hmm. The Foley.
Yes. The Foley was
so bad.
It was great. I mentioned this to you when we tried to record this last time. Mm-hmm. There was a Mystery Science Theater 3000 sketch, and I forget which episode it was in, but it was in the Joel Hodgson era. And he's talking about the Foley in the movie that they're watching, which has a lot of punches with these big fake-sounding slap sounds. And he goes, well, here's how Hollywood does the Foley for that. And he pulls out these wooden ping-pong ball paddles with raw steaks attached to them and just slaps the steaks together. And he goes, Hollywood meat slammers. And he makes the steak slapping sound, and he goes, there's your punch. And in this movie, I can believe that they were using the Hollywood meat slammers from Mystery Science Theater 3000.
But all the Foley was just so bad because it all all the fights either had no sound effects or they had meat slappers. And at one point you hear Mercy walking, she's just walking for a couple of minutes, and she's walking on different kinds of terrain, and it doesn't sound any different.
Right.
It sounds like she's walking down a tile hallway.
Yeah, maybe the Foley artist was not a woman and
had never met a woman and had never heard anybody walking in high heels.
It is possible.
I had a lot of feelings.
You do, and that's why we're here,
yes,
my dear.
Yes.
Meanwhile, the other warriors have escaped, unaware that they have been implicated in Cyrus's murder. The Riffs put out a hit on the warriors through a radio DJ. Swan, the warriors' war chief, takes charge of the group as they try to make it back home.
Yes.
And this is the whole thing. Swan is the war chief. Cleon was the warlord. Swan is the war chief, which is second in command, which means when they lose Cleon, Swan gets to be warlord, and he's the leader.
So the warlord.
Mm-hmm.
Warlord is number 2?
No, War Chief was number 2.
Okay.
Warlord is
so
number 1.
So the War Chief is going to stand by in case the Warlord is unwilling and unable to fulfill his duties.
Yes. Yeah, like if bad photos get out of him or something, and he's got to give his crown back.
Exactly.
Or his leopard print keffiyeh.
Do you think that was just his, like...
Yeah, I think like every warrior had their own thing, and I don't think they got assigned their persona. Like nobody, I don't think anyone looked at cowboy and said, okay, you're going to be the cowboy, here's your hat.
Okay, but I am curious, though, because if we're talking about like a cowboys and Indians sort of thing, you know, I get the vests and the leather vests and whatever. I've never seen either a cowboy or an Indian wearing a leopard print keffiyeh.
Maybe you're just not watching the right old westerns.
Clearly.
So Swan the Warriors War Chief takes charge of the group as they try to make it back home. Almost immediately, the warriors are spotted by the Turnbull ACs. These are the skinheads.
Skinheads in a bus.
Skinheads in a bus.
United colors of skinheads.
Yes. All shades of skinheads, which is fascinating. The Turnbull ACs who attempt to run them down with their bus, but the warriors manage to escape and board the subway.
Right. Okay, so this is my other theory about this movie, is that it may be set in a dystopian future. It is a love letter to the MTA. It is exclusively a love letter to the MTA. This movie, I believe, is supposed to take place in the course of one overnight.
Right.
In the course of said overnight, the trains are all running perfectly fine. They arrive as soon as these people come into a station. The trains are all running. The trains are all clean except for the graffiti because 1979.
Right.
We don't see any rats in the course of this movie. The stations are all bright and clean and well lit, and one of them even has a fucking arcade in the middle of it. Like, this movie is about face paint and matching outfits and how good the MTA is.
Okay. But the one thing, if you're a train geek or an MTA geek like myself,
Or if you just live here like me.
or if you just live here, the one thing you'll notice about these trains is they never take the right train that they should be taking, and it makes no sense where the trains go based on their markings, their lettering, and stuff. Like even at the time when there were a couple of different train lines going on, there was like the Double R and the Q Diamond and like all kinds of other stuff going on as compared to the subway map today. Just the markings on the trains are entirely random. I think the last train they take back to Coney Island at the end is the airport train, because instead of a letter or a number in the window, they have just a picture of an airplane.
It's like a white airplane on a blue background. It looks like if an airplane needed to go to the bathroom, this is the sign it would look for.
Yeah, so none of that makes any sense. And you can kind of plot out what lines they were supposed to be taking, and it has nothing to do with the trains they were actually getting on and off of.
And there are stations that they're like, we're at this station, and no, you're not. No, you're not.
Yeah, this was mostly filmed in, I think a lot of the subway stuff some of it was done in Union Square, in the real Union Square, but a lot of it was done in Hoyt-Schermerhorn Station, which is in Brooklyn, which I actually use on a weekly basis to get to the radio show I work on, which is Off the Hook on WBAI Radio 99.5 FM, 8 p.m. Wednesday nights. Go to 2600.com/offthehook if you'd like to hear the MP3 archives or get more information on that show.
Did you just plug your other project in the middle of our podcast?
Maybe. That's okay. I'm sure I'll pay myself something for the privilege later. No, we don't accept paid ads on Modern Technology. So I just owe myself one. And Hoyt-Schermerhorn Station has, for the longest time, had a couple of platforms that they just don't use. And so those are the ones they end up sending film shoots to, because otherwise they're complete platforms with staircases and everything. It's just no one ever uses them. So if you want to film stuff and not disrupt actual service, that's what you use. So they get on, and another thing about the trains in this movie is they're all sitting there on the track when the warriors need to be running onto a train. And then the doors shut and the train leaves exactly after the last warrior gets on the train, no matter who's chasing them. Even if it's the cops, if it's another gang, whatever, it just, like, they're very plot-sensitive door closings.
Yeah. It's a love letter. This entire movie is a love letter to the MTA. Gets you where you need to go, on time.
Except, like in this case, on the ride to Coney Island, the train is stopped by a fire on the tracks, stranding the warriors in Tremont in the Bronx. Setting out on foot, they come across a group called the Orphans, who are not invited to Cyrus's meeting and who are insecure and belligerent about their low status in the city gang hierarchy.
So I think I figured out why, by the way.
Why is that?
Because everybody else has these, like, kick-ass outfits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's patches and emblems and whatever, and the Orphans are all wearing army green T-shirts with the word Orphans written on the back in black marker.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why they didn't get invited. They didn't have enough style.
That's true. They were the gang of scrubs, and I guess Cyrus didn't want no scrubs.
No.
I'm not going to complete that. I don't know why you're looking at me like that.
No, I'm not asking you to. I'm just thinking, like, I'm sorry, it's just force of habit, really.
So they meet the Orphans, and the Orphans are pissed because, like, what are you doing just marching through our territory? We're badasses. Don't you know how badass we are? And that's when they send Apache out to show them the news article. And so Swan and Fox, who Fox is also the one with, like, local knowledge of all these things somehow. Swan is the leader, so he's going to go out and just negotiate and parlay. And so they're kind of rolling their eyes as they're saying to the Orphans, "Oh yeah, everyone's heard about the Orphans. Our youth board worker talks about you all the time." And
You're 30. Why do you have a youth board worker?
And that's when Apache just, like, he looks all sad because he goes, "We ain't got one. They don't have a youth board worker." And he just looks like all he wants is a youth board worker that he could hug and kiss and call him George.
And have him for his very own.
Yes, exactly. And
I will call him Squishy, and he will be mine, and he will be my Squishy.
yes. But it looks like everything's going to work out okay, and the Orphans are like, "Okay, well, it's all right if you're coming in peace." Swan makes peace with the Orphans' leader, Sully, who agrees to let the warriors pass through their territory unharmed. However, a young woman named Mercy mocks Sully as a chicken and instigates a confrontation. Mercy's goading convinces Sully to demand that the warriors take off their colors and go as civilians before walking through their neighborhood. Swan and the warriors flatly refuse Sully's demand, and the Orphans challenge them to a fight.
It doesn't go well.
It doesn't go well. Outnumbered and unarmed, Swan and the warriors throw a Molotov cocktail at a car, blowing it up and using the opportunity to escape to the subway station. Impressed and desperate to escape her depressed neighborhood, Mercy follows the warriors.
Is Coney Island that much better than Tremont?
I mean, there's a roller coaster.
Well.
And hot dogs.
Well, in that case.
This is also the thing, because this introduces the character of Mercy, who ends up a very sympathetic character as these things go. Like, she ends up, at the end of the movie, she ends up with Swan, and she's fighting alongside the warriors, and everyone's okay with her being there. But really, she's introduced by being this troll that basically shows up and screws up the warriors' day and gets a rumble started.
She's like, she's negging them.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. She's like proto-mystery.
Oh, God.
With less of a hat.
Yes, but just as much bra.
Oh, my God.
I will say this and fully acknowledge the whole male gaze thing. She was ready to poke somebody's eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
And so then she goes and follows the warriors and manages to, like, join up with them and stuff just by walking in her high heels across several types of turf. But the Orphans didn't. Like, wouldn't the Orphans have pursued when the warriors ran away?
I would think.
You would think. Unless maybe their turf was like that block or something. And
could be. I mean, the Orphans didn't have a lot of juice. What can I say?
Maybe not. But Mercy decides, okay, these people that I just tried to get my pals here to kill, I kind of like them. I'm just going to follow them, which is unearned, but there you go. When they arrive at the 96th Street and Broadway station in Manhattan, as played by Horst Schlemmerhorn, they are chased by police and separated. 3 of them, Vermin, Cochise, and Rembrandt, make the train to Union Square, while Fox, struggling with a police officer, falls onto the tracks and is run over by a train as Mercy escapes. This was, of course, Fox's Spaceballs stunt double, getting into a fight with the cop and taking a big cannonball somersault onto the train tracks. And right after Fox disappears below the train platform, there's a barely detectable jump cut to a train. There you go. Fox is no longer appearing in this film.
So we're down 2 warriors.
We're down 2 warriors. One of whom is definitely dead. The other one's probably dead. And Mercy, who had gone off with Fox, gets away. Swan and the remaining 3 warriors, Ajax, Snow, and Cowboy, are chased by the Baseball Furies into Riverside Park.
Excuse me. I believe they are the Kiss Yankees.
The Baseball Furies.
The Kiss Yankees.
Yeah, you do have a point there.
My favorite fun fact about the Kiss Yankees is that none of them are credited.
Yeah, none of them are credited, and that's because they were basically the stuntmen from the film who just all put on baseball suits and face paint and had no lines. They didn't even grunt when they got walloped by warriors. They just made evil-looking faces because lines would have given them a speaking role, and then you got to credit them.
You gotta pay them.
You got to pay them. The Baseball Furies fight was actually, like, as someone who can enjoy a good fight scene, like, it was probably one of the better ones in the film. First it's a chase, and they're running through the park, and then it stops being a chase, and they decide they're tired of running from him. Ajax decides he's running alongside Cowboy. He's like, I'm not going to make it. And Ajax goes, are you sure? Cowboy goes, yeah. And Ajax goes, good. I'm tired of running from these wimps. And so he turns around and starts kicking ass, and it's also very much the 60s Batman fighting rules of, like, okay, we've got this group of guys and you're one guy, so we're all going to stand in a circle while one of our guys fights with you.
Yeah.
And after you kick that guy's ass, another one will show up and fight with you.
Right. And, like, I can get behind a good fight scene. No, I really can't. It's not my thing. But one of the things I found very interesting was that no one got hurt. Everyone just got knocked down to the ground. No one bled.
Yeah.
No one broke.
And this is when they're bashing each other with baseball bats.
Yeah.
Because the Furies are armed with wooden baseball bats. And every time the Warriors knock one down, they get his bat. And so at the end of the fight, all these baseball guys are just lying all over the ground, and the Warriors go off with their new
trophies,
with their new trophy baseball bats. And one bit of filming trivia I love about this scene is that during the chase there weren't enough lights, but there were nowhere really to put lights where it would be conspicuous. So they ended up just hanging lights in the trees. So you don't notice if you're just watching them running past everything, but if you actually pay attention during this scene, or if you pause it or whatever, you can see that there are basically bare light bulbs hanging in the trees as they're walking past, which is no way to run a park.
Hey, it's the light trees that are native to Riverside Park. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's where Pac-Man grows his power pellets. But so the Furies fight happens, and that's also the one fight that's really scored. Mm-hmm. The music in this movie by Barry DeVorzon and Joe Walsh. It's this grindy, early synthesized music, and the opening credits is really iconic for that, and just the musical theme of that. I love the hell out of the music of this movie, and the Furies fight is the other fight that I think just has its own theme. And it's fun to listen to while you're walking through a park or running through a park. After the fight, Ajax notices a lone woman named Chloe in the park. I don't think her name is said in the film. Maybe it's in the credits.
Or maybe she said, did she say, hi, I'm Chloe?
I don't think so.
I don't either. I don't remember.
Ajax notices a lone woman named Chloe in the park, becomes sexually aggressive, and is arrested when Chloe turns out to be an undercover police officer.
So this is also one of those things that would have made more sense if they had cast younger.
Yeah.
There's a scene in A League of Their Own where Dottie has been driven to this roadhouse where the whole team is, and it's like the 16-year-old kid is trying to put a move on her, but, like, he's 16. Mm-hmm. And James Remar, potentially about to rape Mercedes Ruehl, is actually kind of scary.
Yeah. And clicking over to his wiki, it has him born as December 31st, 1953. So when they were filming this in 78, he would have been 25.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts. Mm-hmm. He was definitely not a kid. Mm-mm. He did not look like one. He wants to stop and mess around with this woman, and the other warriors are like, come on, we got to go. And he just drops a hard F at them and decides, no, he's staying and messing with this chick. So
he's the purveyor of the hard Fs in this film.
Yes. This hard F being the one that's a homophobic slur.
The one that we haven't already said multiple times in this podcast.
Right. So he comes back and starts messing with Mercedes, and she plays like she's into it and like, come sit by me. I bet the chicks love your big, strong muscles and stuff, and gets all flirty with him. And because it's the 70s, she tells him, "Oh, we'll get it on." But then he ends up just taking a turn and going forceful. He goes, "You don't understand. I like it rough." And she's telling him to stop and struggling, and he keeps going. And that's when you hear the click of handcuffs. She gets out of the situation while he's handcuffed to the bench now, and starts blowing a police whistle. Yeah, she was a cop. It's funny because he starts freaking out and like, "Come on, lady, you don't want to mess with me," and just pulling on this park bench and ends up dragging the park bench around.
Don't make Ajax angry.
Yeah.
You wouldn't like Ajax when he's angry.
But yes, even in 1979, I believe actual park benches were cemented into the ground. But he starts trying to drag this thing away as the cop cars roll up. Meantime, while Ajax is messing with the cop, Snow and Cowboy and Swan are leaving, and they're telling Swan, "Hey, we got to go back for him. He saved both our asses in that fight with the Furies." And Swan, who is the wise and badass war chief who gets to be leader now, just says, "No, fine. I'm just going to keep going."
You want him, you get him.
Yeah. He nobly leads his merry band by leaving them and just wandering off back to the subway stop. So Snow and Cowboy come back, and you see them from a distance watch as Ajax gets put into the squad cars, and
he's bleeding.
He's bleeding because, when the cops show up, they just show up and start kicking the shit out of him, and he takes a couple of swings back, but he's handcuffed to the bench. So.
Kind of nice to see him get his comeuppance, I'm not going to lie.
He gets his comeuppance, and the last words that he has in the movie are just calling the cop a fucking wimp while he's bleeding out his face.
But of all the fights in the movie, he's the only one who bleeds. People are getting beat with baseball bats, and he's the only one who bleeds.
This is true. I mean, Swan ends up with, like, the manly cheek cut later in the film.
Yeah.
Just, that's something you get after a 70s fight scene.
Yeah.
It's the really butch cheek cut. But... But he's bleeding out his mouth, and he gets dragged away. And so now we're down 3 warriors. 2 of them, one is definitely dead, one is probably dead, and one, the cops got him.
And that's the one everybody worries about. 2 are dead. Nobody's like, whatever. The cops got Ajax. Oh my god.
This is true. I mean, with Cleon, I think you can conceivably say that the warriors just figure maybe he got away on his own, and he'll meet up back with them at... later in their journey, or back home in Coney Island. Maybe he's off having his own adventure. Maybe his real gang summit is the friends he made along the way, or whatever. But Fox, like, I don't know if Mercy sees him get thrown onto the tracks because she's running away, but he's definitely dead, and
he's
I don't think
for sure dead.
Like, I don't think they have any reaction to that later. Ajax is a big deal. He's also their heavy. He's their big muscly dude who does save all their asses in the fights. So it's like all the more scary when they lose him and they have to make the rest of the way back to Coney Island.
Okay, I never thought about that.
So arriving at Union Square, this is shifting to the other subgroup now because we split the party. Arriving at Union Square, Vermin, Cochise, and Rembrandt are seduced by an all-female gang called the Lizzies.
Right, and these girls look like they're maybe 18.
Yeah. And
adds a whole nother level to the whole thing.
Let me just, for anyone who doesn't get the subtext here, they're an all-female gang called the Lizzies. Their shirts are rainbowy. So,
I get it.
Yeah, you see what they did there?
Oh, I see what they did there. Yeah. Okay.
They're seduced by an all-female gang called the Lizzies and invited into their hideout. The trio manages to escape the Lizzies' subsequent attack, learning in the process that everyone believes they murdered Cyrus.
Yes, because the Lizzies say, "Hey, you murdered Cyrus." They throw the deadbolt and flick a switchblade, and one pulls out a gun.
Yeah, I think a couple of them have guns, because they get them back in their hideout, and they're just like, "Hey, we know all about the Warriors. Let's party." And because they ask them, "Where are you dudes?" Chicks like, "You always got dudes," and they go, "Oh, they went to the Bronx or something." But just come party with us. Don't worry about them. So they go back to the hideout and are told basically, look at all these girls, like pick one. And they're smoking a little, they're drinking cigarettes, whatever. And then they put on "Love Is a Fire," which is kind of like this slow rock song on the jukebox. And 2 of them are dancing with each other, staring into each other's eyes, but not actually touching because this is still 1979 Hollywood. And Rembrandt is the one that's really uncomfortable. Vermin and Cochise are into it, and they're like, oh, we got to get to this part of town more often. But Rembrandt is just, how long are we going to stay here? And I think they're maybe on the page, he's the youngest, and so not into all this stuff about girls yet. On the screen, it comes across a bit differently.
It does. But I also admired his strategy of trying to take a nap in a situation he didn't want to be in.
Yeah.
I have employed that many a time in my own life.
Yeah, but then the Lizzies, they throw the deadbolt and they say, so you're the warriors, the ones who shot Cyrus. And the one that Cochise is making out with pulls a switchblade and he stares at it with this magnificent cross-eyed expression.
You know what they all look like? Square pegs.
They do look like square pegs. Oh my God, because they've got that 1979 hair. They've all got like either these huge like shoulder width teased out Rosanna Dana hair, or yeah, they're
it's square pegs.
They're square pegs. Oh my God, I never caught that before.
But you gotta watch with a girl, man.
This is why I bring you places.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
That's why we have a podcast. But yeah, so they end up, I think a couple of them pull guns and they're shooting at the warriors and unable to hit anything.
They couldn't hit the side of a barn door. I mean, It was just...
The warriors just like go flying through the door, shattering it into a million pieces that the deadbolt was thrown on. And the Lizzies don't attempt to pursue them or anything. They're just like, oh shit, I can't hit anything with this darn gun. I'm such a woman. I'm going to paint my nails now.
Yeah, that was pretty much, yeah. It was like, oh, they're off our turf. We can't follow them anymore.
It's like, I grew up on Long Island and in Suffolk County, and there's the Suffolk County Police. But then in the village of Amityville, they had their own police. So there were cops that were just Amityville cops. And kids used to tell stories about driving away and getting over the line so the Amityville cops would stop chasing you.
I'm always fascinated by the fact that if you step 2 feet in one direction on Long Island, you're in a different town. We've had this discussion. Mm-hmm. Maybe there was gang invisible fencing. And they would have got shocked if they had gone any further.
Maybe. Okay, so having scouted ahead on his own, Swan returns to the 96th Street station and finds Mercy there. More police show up, and Swan and Mercy flee into the tunnel. They have an argument, and Swan continues to Union Square, where he reunites with the other warriors. Now, this whole Swan and Mercy thing, again, it was rewritten on the fly because originally it was going to be Fox that ended up with Mercy. But Walter Hill wanted to kill Fox, and also he apparently saw chemistry between Michael Beck as Swan and Deborah Van Valkenburg as Mercy.
Now,
what,
did he?
Yeah, did you not see their love explode across the screen?
No. No, I did not sense any palpable chemistry at all. There was he didn't. No.
You didn't see the turgid romance of him alternately insulting her and being okay with her and insulting her again and then just tolerating her.
Yeah, I guess I missed that.
And considering that like most of Swan's actual lines in this movie are something to the effect of "Come on, let's go," or "Let's go this way," or "Come on."
Yeah, that was the thing. The dialogue in this movie.
This is not a movie you watch for the dialogue.
No.
Just like there were magazines that you didn't read for the articles. This is that but a movie. And I'm not saying this is porn, but it's
not a movie you watch for the story.
Well, even the story. The story is a fight delivery system.
That's a really good way to put it.
And the fights are arranged where everyone's wearing nice matchy outfits so you can keep track of who's who and what side they're on. And
you can tell eventually which side they're on because if they're standing, they're warriors, and if they're on the ground, they're whoever they happen to be fighting. And they're all just, like, at the end of the fight scene, the opposition is lying there on the ground, and all you're missing is little cartoon birds twittering around their heads.
This is true. There was never really a sense of peril in this movie because the warriors, were basically invincible even when they were scared and even when they were at a great disadvantage, which, they're butch action movie heroes in the 1970s.
And Rembrandt.
And also Rembrandt's there, too. But by and large, like, the warriors as a collective character are the badasses, and that's what the whole movie's about. Yeah, there's never really a sense, even though they lose 3 of them, I don't think there's ever really a sense that there's any peril. I think the character losses are all basically just, I think they're all basically there to make the rest of the warriors even more badass for surviving it, but like it never feels like the warriors are actually in trouble.
Well, it doesn't. There's a lot of things that are missing. It's a fight delivery system. What characters are developed beyond one dimension? None characters.
Unless you count Mercy and Swan, or maybe just Mercy, or maybe just Luther, for developing into the guy who gets the fury of the gods brought down upon him at the end.
Right, but like,
yeah, no, I could see that. Where the heck are we? Okay.
Swan and Mercy are walking through the subway tunnel.
Yeah, they're walking through the subway tunnel, and
they're making out.
Yeah, they stop and they talk a bit about, like, Mercy's like, why don't you like me? Completely disregarding the whole, like, well, you tried to get me and all my pals killed by your other pals. He just says, oh, I don't like the way you live. And she has some other stuff to say, which isn't important.
And then they start, like, basically hate snogging.
Yeah, they start hate snogging as, like, trains are running up and down the tracks on either side of them, which is not easy to do.
Especially if you're trying to avoid the third rail.
But then they hate snog, and then Swan's like, just, no, I don't like this. You're part of everything that's happening tonight, and it's all bad. And so he goes off on his own, leaving Mercy there looking dissatisfied with the situation.
In her open-toed sandals.
In her open-toed sandals. But he just gets up onto the platform at Union Square. He got onto the train platform at 96th Street.
He walked 80 blocks.
Him and Mercy walked 80 blocks, which, that's a walk. They have an argument, and Swan continues to Union Square, where he reunites with the other warriors. A fist fight ensues with the punks in a public restroom, which the warriors win. Now, this is the thing. At Union Square, they all, the remaining warriors all meet back up again. Snow and Cowboy basically show up after disappearing after the Ajax arrest. They show up and like nothing's happened. Vermin, Cochise, and Rembrandt show up after the Lizzie stuff, and they just meet back up with Swan, and Mercy's there too somehow, even though Swan left her in the tunnel, and everyone's still okay again. And they're being stalked by the punks, who are the overalls guys.
The overalls guys, and the leader of the punks is on roller skates.
Leader of the punks. Is that your roller skates noise?
I'm not even sure what that was, frankly. But
I liked it, whatever it was.
Thank you. So there's this whole scene where the leader of the punks is skating down a ramp very slowly.
Yeah, from side to side.
Did Walter Hill also make Xanadu?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
I forget who did. But.
Maybe Michael Beck watched the scene getting filmed and he was like, shit, I need to have roller skates in my next movie.
Maybe. This leads to the one joke that really cracked you up, I think, during the movie. Which is the warriors decide they all just go into the men's room in the subway station and wait for the punks to come in after them. And they bring Mercy, and Mercy just goes...
I can't go in there. It's a men's room.
To which Remen pops out and goes, are you kidding? And just drags her in. And so they all go in the toilet stalls and wait. And the punks go in, and they're all angry and badass. And the leader's got those attack eyebrows. And... Very Peter Capaldi.
Yes. Would you like to know, by the way, what scene this reminded me of in West Side Story? Officer Krupke.
Officer Krupke, really?
Yeah, because they're all like in the bathroom stalls and they're about to do like a do. You know, it was like it was set up for Goofy.
Yeah. Except when the lead punk finally opens the stall, it's the one that Rembrandt's in, and because he's the graffiti spray paint guy, he has the can of paint at the ready and sprays him in the face. And then the fight properly starts. Right,
but he couldn't actually spray paint the guy in the face. So he uses water. It's water in the spray can.
Yeah, he gets sprayed on the face, and it's obviously clear mist. And then immediately the camera cuts, and he's covered in red paint, except around his eyes.
It was like he had those little tanning goggles on.
Yes. But in the fight in the bathroom, I think it's the one... scene that was filmed on a soundstage.
So the warriors dispatch the punks.
And
bloodshed. Somebody like goes flying through a wooden bathroom stall door. no bloodshed.
Yeah, someone else gets thrown into the mirrors, and the mirrors shatter.
You would think somebody would at least, like, tear the strap of their overalls, but no.
No, that Oshkosh Bagosh is a really good brand. And wears like iron. Meanwhile, the Riffs are visited by a gang member who attended the earlier gathering and saw Luther shoot Cyrus. And this guy, you said there were no rats in this movie, but here's one. This guy, it's not even clear what gang he's in, if any. He's just like some dude that they pull up and bring to Masai, the Riffs leader, and say, there's someone you want to talk to. He knows who shot Cyrus. And yeah, that's one thing we haven't mentioned is through the whole movie, after every fight scene, basically it cuts to the Riffs leader getting an update from someone going, the Turnbull ACs tried to get him but missed, and they met up with some group that's not on our radar called the Orphans, but they got
missed. And then missed. Apparently Masai immediately calls the DJ because then she has a report about it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the most obvious music cues in the entire thing was the DJ thing. She's like, we have a message for the Warriors from the Riffs. And then she plays Nowhere to Run.
Right. That's the initial hit being put out on the Warriors. And the way she phrases it is, the Warriors, that real live bunch from Coney, here's a hit with them in mind. I can't be as sultry as Lynn Thigpen, but, who can? That's where the Riffs are. And the Warriors finally arrive at Coney Island at dawn, only to find the Rogues are waiting for them. This skips over the scene where they're on the subway. After that fight with the punks, they're all on their last subway of the night back to Coney, and you see them, and they're all just looking really, really whipped. And Swan's got his manly cheek cut, which is healing up. Cowboy is snoozing, stretched across the subway bench, cradling the baseball bat like a teddy bear, which is adorable. And the rest of them are kind of just woozily having this talk about, like, Cyrus was right about one thing. It's all out there. We just got to figure out how to steal it. And then, but we got to figure out what's worth stealing. And...
the Warriors wax philosophical.
And this is when four civilians, non-gang members, get on the train. And they are 2 boys and 2 girls, basically teenagers dressed up in prom stuff. 70s prom stuff, so like totally frilled shirts. They look like John Pertwee on a bender. The third Doctor Who, he kind of dressed like Austin Powers.
Sure.
And so these prom kids, they're all like giggling and chatting with each other, and they sit on a subway bench, and then mid-chat they look across and see Swan and Mercy sitting across from them, and like they're all streaked with grime and crud, and they're just sort of regarding them, and Mercy goes to like brush her hair out of her face, and Swan like grabs her hand and puts it back down, like, no, don't you adjust yourself for the sake of these people.
And they get real spooked and real quiet.
Yeah, and they just get off at the next stop.
In the hurry, one of the girls drops her corsage.
Right.
Which is not a good corsage, by the way.
Maybe it was good in the 70s. Like,
maybe.
It was before they invented taste. But...
Douche.
But then you see it's early morning, day is breaking, and the subway rolls into Coney Island Stillwell Avenue, and rolls to a stop. And so the Warriors get off the train. Swan sees the dropped corsage, picks it up, and gives it to Mercy.
What did you do that for?
He goes, I just don't like to see anything go to waste.
And now apparently she loves him forever.
Right, and apparently he loves her forever now, and that's how he shows it. But then he looks out, and you see like this view over the buildings of Coney Island, which was then and still is kind of a cruddy neighborhood. And he goes, this is what we fought all night to get back to. And maybe I'll just take off. And Mercy goes, well, I like traveling too. And he goes, you've never been anywhere? And she goes, no, but I just know I'd like it. And again, watch their love burst across the screen like 4th of July fireworks.
Oh, yeah. It was palpable.
It was palping all over the place. So they start walking back to Coney, and they realize that the Rogues are driving around in their rainbow-colored Studebaker.
A bear in his natural habitat.
Yes. Their car, they're driving this old car that's covered in scrawly graffiti, and it really does look like the Studebaker in the Muppet movie after the Electric Mayhem painted. And
So then this iconic moment in the film. So I said I didn't know much. I knew it was about gangs in New York City, and the phrase warriors come out and play.
Mm-hmm.
Outplay, to play.
Come out to play.
Come out to play. So Luther is sitting in the car looking creepy, looking like washed out Jeff Spicoli, and clinking 3 little tiny bottles on his fingers.
Mm-hmm.
Clink, clink, clink.
And at this point-
Warriors, come out to play. Can you hear my eyes rolling?
Well, he's nuts. And also, while this is going on, the warriors are underneath a pier. Basically, they're under the boardwalk, and they all. Are you trying to get us a copyright strike? Okay. The warriors are under the boardwalk, and they all start just breaking things off of the structure to use as weapons. They're breaking off bits of board, bits of pipe.
They're going to rumble. See?
Yeah, they're going to rumble. Mercy takes a beer bottle and smashes it on something, so she's got the jagged edges.
We are ready. We are ready to throw down.
No, they are packed, which
And
is
they're
what they call it
stacked,
when
especially in the back.
Yes.
Brother, want to thank your mother for her butt like that.
And so they decide they're going to have this out with the rogues. So Swan goes, I'm going to take him out to the sand. And he has got the switchblade that the leader of the punks tried to use in the bathroom.
It didn't go well for him.
So he pushes the button to extend the switchblade blade.
Twing!
And then he shoves it, blade extended, into his belt.
Mm-hmm. So I hope he wasn't planning to sit down.
Right. You would think, like, if you had a switchblade and you wanted to stash it, you would switch the blade back in.
I would think. I would think also you would just, like, hang on to it and then, boom, hit the button. But I've never been in a fight like that, so what do I know?
I mean, that's why we're not warriors.
Exactly.
But so they go out to the sea, and it's this big panning camera shot of just all the warriors looking really whipped. They've all had the shit beaten out of them. And then it's like the 9 rogues on one side and the 6 warriors on the other side. And
7
if you count Mercy. When asked, Luther tells Swan he shot Cyrus for no reason because he gets a thrill out of things like that. Swan challenges Luther to a one-on-one fight, but Luther pulls his gun instead. Swan throws a knife into Luther's wrist, disarming him. And the Riffs arrive and apprehend the rogues, taking a moment to acknowledge the warriors' courage and skill. As the warriors leave, Luther screams in anguish as the Riffs descend upon the rogues.
And that's the end of the movie.
More or less. And this whole scene, when Luther's just like, I just like doing things like that. And then, yeah, he pulls out his gun and he fires, but at the same instant, Swan throws the switchblade and it gets Luther right in the arm. And
right, so, like, where did the bullet go?
The bullet went somewhere on the beach, probably to hang out with lots of other bullets, because it was Coney Island in 1979.
So true.
And then Luther is cradling his wounded arm, and Swan comes up and just yoinks the switchblade out of his arm, and then cleans it off on Luther's hair.
And, like, I thought maybe he cut off a lock of Luther's hair.
Yeah,
And,
maybe
like, a
there
keepsake.
I don't know. But so he does that, and just apparently he's just cleaning his knife off on Luther's hair, which, from the state of Luther's hair, I think the knife might have been dirtier after.
Yeah. But I think grease cleans blood. So.
Yeah, maybe. And in that instant, you see Masai shout riffs, and they all chant, "Yeah, right," which is their callback to their leader. But all of a sudden, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of riffs.
Riffs as far as the eye can see.
All dressed in black, all like on this beach. They apparently snuck up on everybody during this fight in the wide open beach.
And you're waiting for the final showdown, and it just doesn't happen.
Right, because the riffs come up and they, Swan says to Masai, are you still looking for us? And they look over at Luther and go, we found who we're looking for. And the Masai says, you warriors are good. And Swan goes, the best. And Masai goes, the rest is ours. And they have sort of a manly bro nod to each other. So a pathway opens in the crowd of riffs so the warriors can just leave. And Luther's still there screaming, no, it wasn't us, it was them, the warriors. And he is whimpering like a baby. Mm-hmm. And the rifts just close in around him and the rest of the rogues, and you hear Luther screaming his fool head off as the screen wipes to the DJ. And the DJ announces that the big alert has been called off and salutes the warriors with a song, In the City. Swan, Mercy, and the rest of the gang walk down the beach, illuminated by the rising sun.
And that's the movie.
That's the movie. The filming trivia I love about that is that apparently there was no way to tell the cast that they had gotten the shot and they had cut, or they shouted cut and they just, the cast were already too far away to hear, so they just kept walking and ended up like way down the beach.
That is awesome.
But yeah, it closes with In the City by Joe Walsh. And there you are. That's the Warriors.
So I said earlier I was going to reference the Max Wright quote, and here I'm going to do it now. So it was the second season of Friends, and Max Wright was playing like the owner of Central Perk or something, and he was trying to get Rachel to fire Phoebe as the singer at Central Perk, and she said, why? And he said, it's not that your friend is bad. It's that she's so bad that she makes me want to take my finger and put it through my ear, into my brain, and swirl it around. And, yeah. So this movie...
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, I'm glad we talked about it because, like I told you, I feel like I missed a lot because the dialogue is so damn bad. I missed names. I missed situations. I still think that the Kiss Yankees is a better name than the Baseball Furies, and that's what they're called now. I hope you don't mind. But
not canon.
No, no, it's canon. Yeah. So look, I'm glad I saw it because I hadn't seen it. But like, bro.
So you're saying you didn't like it?
Yes, that is what I'm saying. I'm saying thank you for sharing it with me. But, I don't think we need to go back to see it on Coney Island next summer.
That is okay. I will find another date next year, but...
Oh, it's going to be like that, huh?
Well, I had told our friend Gonzo that you didn't like the movie, and he asked if we need to stage an intervention. But the truth of the matter is, you're allowed to not like things I like. Just as there are things you like that I don't.
Exactly.
And I still really enjoy hearing your take on it and going through this with you and discussing it with you, and also just the sheer gamut of reactions you had to everything that was going on in this film. Because I mean, I think you showed me that it was a tweet or something that somebody did where it was like, if I'm showing you a movie that I love, I'm watching your reactions to it more than I'm watching the film.
Yeah.
And that was a fun ride for me.
I'm glad. I mean, I've also enjoyed pointing out the stuff that I saw that you might not have, like Gang Jesus and Chris Pine and, you know.
Yeah. So, the Warriors...
The Kiss Yankees.
The Kiss Yankees. So, the Warriors, you would say, is maybe not worth revisiting.
I mean, I think I would like to see it at some point one more time. I would also be interested in seeing the director's cut, because honestly, I don't know how this movie could be worse.
Yeah, the director's cut is not good. The director's cut, I mean, The Warriors is based on the novel of the same name by Sal Urich.
I was going to say Push by Sapphire.
Based on the novel Push by Sapphire, yes. But the novel The Warriors by Sal Urich was an updated retelling of the 4th century Greek epic, the Anabasis, written by Xenophon.
Right, I knew that. I was watching this movie and I was like, this is the Anabasis.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, I knew that.
But
why'd you tell me that? I knew that.
That is an ancient story of a forced march by a bunch of soldiers that get stranded in hostile territory and have to fight their way home. And so it's a very old story. It's very archetypal and tropey. But the director's cut, Walter Hill, some years later, I think maybe early 2000s, decided to do a George Lucas and say, I'm going to do the stuff that I wanted to do at the time that the studio didn't let me. And so he added an opening crawl and narration that he did himself, which is something like, over, thousands of years ago, or he actually says millenniums ago, which...
that's not even correct
grammar. That's not
grammar.
even correct grammar, but, Walter Hill was a butthead at this point. a group of soldiers were on a desperate forced march, thousands of miles from friendly, whatever. Theirs was a story of a desperate forced march, and theirs was a story of courage, and this also is a story of courage. And then it goes to the opening, with the Wonder Wheel and the subways and everything. And then basically before every big fight scene is like a screenshot from the movie, but illustrated like a comic book. And so like right before the baseball furies show up, there's like a comic book shot of whatever the Warriors are looking over their shoulder, and it says like, "Oh shit, the baseball furies."
Do we still get to see them coming up out of the dugout and grabbing their bats?
We do. It's just like it doesn't take anything away, but it just adds really unnecessary crap, and it's just not good for anyone. So you can get the theatrical version, which is what we saw on DVD, which is out of print, but still reasonably easy to find. It's got this cover with like purple and bluish colors, as opposed to the director's cut, which is all red and orange fiery colors. And it says like Ultimate Director's Cut, which is also the only version that's out on Blu-ray. But the theatrical cut, I think you can get on demand maybe. Yeah, if you're going to check this movie out, if you have not checked it out before and we've just spoiled the entire thing for you, I would still recommend you choose the theatrical cut if you find a way to over the director's cut. But yeah, I still dig this movie. It's definitely... There are things about it that have not aged well. Its treatment of women is crap.
It fails the Bechdel test spectacularly.
Yeah, except the one other female character we didn't mention was the girl with pigtails who was at a candy stand that the rogues
menaced
robbed.
by the rogues.
Yeah, being menaced by the rogues, and her one line is, "Hey, what about the money you owe?" And Luther just goes, "For what?" and throws like candy at her or something. But that little girl is Ginny Ortiz, who, back to 321 Contact again, she played one of the hosts of the original run of 321 Contact, who was a character called Trini, and who, when I was a kid watching 321 Contact in the 80s, was the cute one. So, that's another little fun 80s kid connection. But yeah, it is not a well-written movie, but it is, I still think it's a heck of a movie to watch. It looks like nothing else ever committed to film. And also, like, New York City itself is kind of a character in it. It's like maybe the main antagonist. And just being as it was filmed in real world 1979 New York City at the time, like that's the only way you're going to see a lot of bad old days New York. There was ultra stylized stuff like Taxi Driver and things like that, but I think this has certain views of certain old bits of New York that you're just not going to see anymore. And so, like, as a New York City movie dork and as a local history dork, there's also just a lot to see in this movie. And it's one of those ones I can rewatch and just pay attention to stuff in the background and ignore the story and still get a good time out of it.
There's not much story to ignore.
I'm sorry?
I said there's not much story to ignore. I don't know. Maybe if we see it again and I've got a seat with the back, I'll feel different. I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
So I know I didn't choose the Tao of Steve in retribution for the Goonies. I know you didn't choose the Warriors in retribution for the Tao of Steve.
Well, I chose the Warriors because the screening was happening.
I understand that. We've got to get back on track.
We will do. But on the other hand, you've now experienced another one of my weird pop cultural obsessions.
And for that, I'm very, very glad. I'm glad to have gotten to watch this with you.
And I like being able to give you these little glimpses into what it looks and sounds like inside my head sometimes.
I'm always happy to be there.
So, that was The Warriors.
The Warriors. Where are our fireflies?
I think our fireflies are in different...
universes.
Different universes at this point. But yes, I still dig this. I will, I still enjoy this movie. I won't make you watch it with me next time.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, I would like to see it again, but maybe I need some time.
Maybe. I won't make you play the video game either.
Oh, thanks, sweetie. You know how much I love video games, especially ones that are based on movies I didn't really like.
Absolutely. So, this has been another exciting episode of Modern Technology Watches. We will catch you next time.
We'll see you at the movies. They can't trademark that phrase, man.
I don't know. Roger Ebert might
Come back and haunt me.
He might come back from the dead and send his gang of people dressed like Roger Ebert to come beat us up.
You've been listening to episode 106 of Modern Technology Watches with Gila Drazen and Rob Vincent, and a special appearance by Susie Drazen. Go to modern.technology on the web for more info on this show, our other work, and our social media splatter. Our music is The Promise by Torley Wong, released Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 3.0. Find more from Torley at torley.com. Thank you, Torley. Content from wikipedia.org is used under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike License 3.0. This podcast is released under Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike 4.0, produced by modern.technology. Send us email at watches@modern.technology.
I mean, what I said was, my parents lived in New York in the late 70s, and, you know, my parents have always said it was a scary place to be sometimes. But I don't know, Mom, if you had seen a group of 9 young men wearing red and black striped shirts and suspenders who were had their faces painted as mimes, would you be intimidated by that?
Me? I would have run the other way screaming. What are you talking?
Fair enough.
Those are